नाम संकीर्तन यज्ञ की जगत गुरु श्रील प्रभुपाद की। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय।
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Narayanam Namaskritya
Narayanam Namaskritya.
Naram Chaiva Narottamam
Naram Chaiva Narottamam.
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam
Devim Saraswatim Vyasam.
Tato Jaya Mudire
Tato Jayamudire.
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu
Nashtaprayeshu Abhadreshu.
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya
Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya.
Bhagavate Uttama Shloke
Bhagavatyuttama Shloke.
Bhaktir Bhavati Nashtiki.
Bhaktir Bhavati Naishiki.
So we are reading from Canto 5, Chapter 18, Canto 5, Chapter 18, verse number 18. Om Ram Rim Hrum Om Namo Bhagavate Rishikeshaya Sarva Guna Visheshe Vilakshitatmane Akutinam Chittinam Chetasam Visheshanam Chadhipataye Shodasha Kalaya Chando Mayayanna Mayayamrita Mayaya Sarva Mayaya Sahase Ojase Balaya Kantaya Kamaya Namaste Ubhayatra Bhuyat. Word to word meanings. Om, O Lord.
O Lord.
Hiram Ring Hrum.
Ram Rim Rum.
The seeds of the mantra chanted for a successful result. Om, O Lord.
O Lord.
Namaha.
Namaha.
Respectful obeisances.
Respectful obeisances.
Bhagavate.
Bhagavate.
Unto the lotus feet of Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Unto the lotus feet of the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
Rishikeshaya.
Rishikeshaya.
Unto Rishikesh.
Unto Rishikesh.
The Lord of the senses.
The Lord of the senses.
Sarva Guna.
Sarvaguna.
With all transcendental qualities.
With all transcendental qualities.
Visheshai.
Visheshai.
With all varieties.
With all varieties.
Vilakshita.
Vilakshita.
Particularly observed.
Particularly observed.
Atmane.
Atmane.
Unto the soul of all living entities.
Unto the soul of all living entities.
Akutinam.
Akutinam.
Of all kinds of activity.
Of all kinds of activities.
Chittinam.
Chittinam.
Of all kinds of knowledge.
Of all kinds of knowledge.
Chetasam.
Chetasam.
Of the functions of the mind,
Of the functions of the mind.
such as determination and mental effort.
Such as determination and mental effort.
Visheshanam.
Visheshanam.
Of their respective objects.
Of the respective objects.
Cha.
Cha.
And
And
Adhipataye.
Adhipataye.
Unto the master.
Master.
Shodasha Kalaya.
Shodashakalaya.
Whose parts are the 16
Whose parts are the 16
original ingredients of the creation,
original ingredients of creation.
namely the 5 objects of senses
Namely the 5 objects of senses.
and the 11 senses including the mind.
And the 11 senses including the mind.
Chanda Mayaya.
Chandamaya.
Unto the enjoyer of all ritualistic ceremonies.
Unto the enjoyer of all ritualistic ceremonies.
Annamayaya.
Annamaya.
Who maintains all living entities
Who maintains all living entities
by supplying the necessities of life.
by supplying the necessities of life.
Amritamayaya.
Amritamayaya.
Who awards eternal life.
Who awards eternal life.
Sarvamayaya.
Sarvamayaya.
Who is all pervading.
Who is all pervading.
Sahase.
Sahase.
The powerful.
The powerful.
Ojase.
Ojase.
Who supplies strength through the senses.
Who supplies strength to the senses.
Balaya.
Balaya.
Who supplies strength to the body.
Who supplies strength to the body.
Kantaya.
Kantaya.
The supreme husband or master of all living entities.
The supreme husband or master of all living entities.
Kamaya.
Kamaya.
Who supplies all necessities for the devotees.
Who supplies all necessities for the devotees.
Namaha.
Namaha.
Respectful obeisances.
Respectful obeisances.
Te.
Te.
Unto you.
Unto you.
Ubhayatra.
Ubhayatra.
Always.
Always.
During both day and night.
During both both day and night,
or both in this life and the next.
or both in this life and the next.
Bhuyat,
Bhuyat,
may there be all good fortune.
may there be all good fortune.
Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Jai Srila Prabhupada. Translation. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Lord Rishikesha, the controller of all my senses and origin of everything. As the Supreme Master of all bodily, mental and intellectual activities, He is the only enjoyer of the results. The 5 sense objects and 11 senses, including the mind, are His partial manifestations. He supplies all the necessities of life, which are His energy and thus non-different from Him. And He is the cause of everyone's bodily and mental prowess, which is also non-different from Him. Indeed, He is the husband and provider of necessities of all living for all living entities. The purpose of all the Vedas is to worship Him. Therefore, let us all offer Him our respectful obeisances. May He always be favorable towards us in this life and the next. Purport. In this verse, the word Maya Maya is further explained in regard to how the Lord expands His mercy in different ways. Parasya Shaktir Vividhaiva Shruyate. The energies of the Supreme Lord are understood in different ways. In this verse, He is described as the original source of everything. Even our body, senses, mind, activities, prowess, bodily strength, mental strength and determination for securing the necessities of life. Indeed, the Lord's energies can be perceived in everything. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, Rasoham apsu kaunteya, the taste of water is also Krishna. Krishna is the active principle of everything we need for our maintenance. This verse offers respectful obeisances unto the Lord, was composed by Rama, the goddess of fortune, and is full of spiritual power. Under the guidance of a spiritual master, everyone should chant this mantra and thus become a complete and perfect devotee of the Lord. One may chant this mantra for complete liberation from material bondage, and after liberation one may continue to chant it while worshipping the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha Loka. All mantras, of course, are meant for this life and the next life, as Krishna Himself confirms in the Bhagavad Gita. Satatam kirtayanto mam yatantascha dridhavrita namaschantascha mam bhaktya nitya yukta upasate. Always chanting my glories, endeavoring with great determination, bowing down before me, the great souls perpetually worship me with devotion. A devotee who both in this life and the next chants the Maha Mantra or any mantra is called Nitya Yukto Pasaka. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroh Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamshcha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Sha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swamin Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pashat Deshatarine Vancha Kalpatarobhisha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratushe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langayate kirim Yatkripatam ham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Hare Krishna. So we're discussing this verse, the 18th verse from the Bhagavatam, which are the prayers of Lakshmi Devi. So in the previous verse, or in the previous entire chapter, we were discussing how in different varshas, the inhabitants who are there, they're busy offering, or they are continuously engaged in offering prayers to the Supreme Lord. So before this, we discussed the description of Prahlad Maharaj. So how he is there in Hari Varsha, and he is also offering different prayers to the Supreme Lord. And now in this verse, we are discussing about Lakshmi Devi, that how she is present in Ketumala Varsha. And here the prayer is mentioned, that how wonderfully she is also offering prayers to the Supreme Lord. So now this question comes, so okay, entire thing, if we see the last chapters of the 5th canto, the entire discussion is about the Vedic cosmology. We have the descriptions of the Jambudvip, which we were discussing previously, the location of the different planetary systems, the location of Mount Meru, and multiple other rivers and all those things we were seeing. And the different opulences that are there in different islands in Jambudvip, or different varshas in Jambudvip that we were discussing. And even in the coming chapters, we'll have amazing descriptions about the different Vedic cosmology that is there, different structure of the entire universe that is there. We'll have the description of the different islands that are there in Jambudvip, the structure of the entire universe, how the movement of the sun is there. And finally, the last chapter is the description of the hellish planets as well. So now one thing that is there, here we see that in the entire description that is there in the entire last chapters of the Bhagavatam, of this canto of the Bhagavatam, where we see in the description of the universe, in the middle of it, we see these amazing prayers that are there. In the middle of that entire Vedic cosmology, entire discussion of different aspects, locations, we see these important, amazing prayers that are there. So one thing we can understand here is that after understanding all the descriptions of the different planetary systems, different locations that are there, of course, understanding that is also not very easy. But even if someone is able to understand all those things, or at least he understands that he cannot understand all those things, in any case, finally a person has to come to this point, that is offering the praise to the Supreme Lord. And that is what we see, how these amazing prayers are mentioned in this entire section of prayers offered by different devotees. Because finally, after understanding, appreciating the glories of the Lord, appreciating the greatness of the Lord, that how He has created the different universes, He has positioned different planets in such an amazing way. After appreciating, a person should come to the point of prayers. A person should offer prayers to the Supreme Lord. And how in this section we see Lakshmi Devi, in this verse we see Lakshmi Devi is offering beautiful prayers to the Supreme Lord, offered by the goddess of fortune. So one thing we see in this prayer, so we can analyze this prayer, and any prayer in the Bhagavatam we see, if we analyze any prayer, we'll get the essence of the entire Vedic scriptures, or we'll get the most amazing essence of the entire Vedic philosophy that is there. Same way, if we analyze this prayer, we can understand that how Lakshmi Devi was completely aware about the position of the Lord. She was not in any doubt, and through her prayers we can analyze that she understands what is the position of the Lord. She acknowledges that position, and then she offers respectful obeisances to the Lord. So here we see in this verse, it says, Om Namo Bhagavate Rishikeshaya. So here she is talking about that how Rishikeshaya, Rishikesh means one who is the controller of all the senses. And she is offering her obeisances to Rishikeshaya, or to the one who controls her senses, or to the controller of the senses who is the origin of everything. This same verse we see is used in the Bhagavad Gita also, Rishikesha. where it's mentioned for Krishna, who is the Rishikesha, who is the controller of all the senses. So we see in the Bhagavad Gita, externally it seems something initially, or someone might read the Gita, he might think like that Arjuna is the one who is controlling. Or Arjuna is the one who is on the chariot and Krishna is driving the chariot, so Arjuna is the one who is in control. Externally it seems like that. But when we read the Gita, when Arjuna initially, when he was also bewildered in his war, or he was not ready to fight against the Kauravas, thinking that he is the one in control or he is the one who can decide, but later he realizes, or later he also acknowledges the position of the Lord and he calls the Lord as Rishikesha. When in the 11th chapter, when Krishna shows his universal form, and when Arjuna sees that form that was never seen before, and he sees all the soldiers that are there, all the soldiers, he was saying that I won't fight against these soldiers, and when he sees the same soldiers going into the mouth of that universal form and being crushed into pieces in that form, and then he becomes fearful. And that time he asks that, who are you? That time he becomes confused that, who are you? Tell me, what is your identity? And there Krishna says that I am the one who devours everything. And there Krishna says that whatever will happen on the battlefield, that is already decided. That has already happened, or that will already destined to happen. And you can just be a medium, you can just be a nimitta and can execute or take the glories for yourself. And there Arjuna also understands, or Arjuna also realizes that he is and then he addresses him as Rishikesha. That ultimately it is he who is the controller, he is the one who decides what has to happen, he is the one who controls and directs everything. And we are just mere servants, or I am just here meant to follow his order or follow his guidance. So of course, when it comes to pure devotees, they are never bewildered, but this was under the internal potency of the Lord, that Arjuna was also thinking at one point that I am the one who can decide, I don't want to fight against these soldiers. But finally he also understands that Rishikesha, or controller of all the senses, is Lord Krishna. And here Lakshmi Devi is also praying like that. She is saying, Om Namo Bhagavate Rishikeshaya. Then she says, Sarva Gune Vishesher. So again, this is also very interesting. Each and every word she uses in the prayers is very interesting. And here this is translated Sarva Gune, with all transcendental qualities. And Vishesher means with varieties. So with this itself, whatever the Mayavadis say, whatever things they say that Lord is Nirguna, he doesn't have any form, he doesn't have any qualities, or he doesn't have varieties, or whatever they describe, that can be refuted. How in this prayer we say, Lakshmi Devi is praying that Lord is the one who has all the transcendental qualities, or who is full of Sarva Guna, and he has varieties, and so many varieties are there in his creation. But also at some point it's very interesting to note that some places in the Bhagavatam, Lord is also referred to as Nirguna. A Lord is also referred to as, or the name of the Lord is given as, he is Nirguna. So that also has to be very, very nicely understood, that why here it's mentioned as Lord is Sarvaguna, he has so many qualities. And at some places we see he is mentioned as Nirguna, so what is the difference? So one of the pastimes we see, one of the places where he is mentioned is, in 10th canto, Shukdev Goswami, he was telling to Parikshit Maharaj. So he was explaining to Parikshit Maharaj, he was recommending that one should meditate on Lord Hari. And meditation on Lord Hari is the highest goal of life. And there King Parikshit Maharaj asked Shukdev Goswami, or he asked this question for the people in general, that there is a common fear that is there. He expresses this fear that anyone who worships, any kind of person, be it a human being who worships the Supreme Lord, be it a demigod who worships the Supreme Lord, demon who worships the Supreme Lord, he says that generally who is worshipping Supreme Lord, it is seen that person becomes poor. Or that person, all the opulence is taken away from him. And on the other hand, it's seen that one who is worshipping Lord Shiva. So even though externally Lord Shiva is a renunciant, very, very austerely he lives, he doesn't even have a house for himself. But one who worships Lord Shiva, he becomes very, very rich, or he becomes full of material opulences. So Parikshit Maharaj is asking like that when Shukdev Goswami was recommending that one should worship Lord Hari, one should meditate on Lord Hari. Here Parikshit Maharaj is asking this thing, that why is it that those who worship Lord Hari, they become poverty stricken, and on the other hand, those who are worshipping Lord Shiva, they become very, very rich, or they become full of material opulences. Because this is but a natural question, logical question, that if someone serves someone who is very, very rich, he expects to become rich, or he expects to get that wealth. And you cannot get anything by worshipping someone who is poor. But here's something that is very, very contrary. So there Shukdev Goswami explains something very, very nice, which is context to this word that I was discussing about. So he speaks that Lord Shiva, he is always in touch with the material nature. He's always united with the material nature for the sake of creation in multiple aspects. And that is why, because he is in touch with the material modes, he bestows material opulences. Or he very easily he gets satisfied and bestows the material opulences that are there. And that's why he's also called as Ashutosha, one who is very, very easily pleased. But then he speaks about the position of the Supreme Lord. And there Shukdev Goswami says, Harir hi nirguna shakshat purusha prakrate paraha. There he speaks that Lord Hari is nirguna, which is little contrary to what we are discussing. Today we are discussing Lord is sarvaguna, but there he says, Hari hi nirguna sakshat purusha prakrate paraha sa sarvadrik upadrishta tam bhajan nirguno bhavet. So when this comparison was being made that Lord Shiva, one who worships Lord Shiva, he becomes very, very rich. So he says because Lord Shiva, he is in touch with the material modes, he is in touch with the material nature, so he naturally bestows material opulences. But now when it comes to Supreme Lord Hari, he is nirguna. And what he means by nirguna, that he is not in touch with material nature. Or he is free from the influence of the material modes. He doesn't come at all in touch with material nature. And that's why he says, Harir hi nirguna sakshat purusha prakrate para, that he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and he is beyond the modes of nature. He is beyond all things that are there. He is transcendental to the material nature. And now such a person who is nirguna or who is beyond the modes of material nature, it's but natural if someone worships him or if someone engages in his worship, why will he give him something which is material? A person who is himself nirguna, who doesn't have any material qualities, someone who is engaged in worshipping him, naturally it's but obvious he won't give him anything material. Rather, what he gives him, one who worships him, he also becomes free from the modes of nature. So there Shukdev Goswami explains this point that if someone worships Lord Hari, who is nirguna, here nirguna means that he is above the material qualities. He doesn't have any of the material qualities we see in this world. But he is full of spiritual qualities. That person, if someone worships that person, naturally Lord doesn't want to bestow material opulences on him. Lord wants to free him from the material modes that are there. And that is why getting material opulence is a kind of cheating that a person gets, because ultimately a person becomes entangled because of that. If it's not given, if it's not used in the proper perspective. So here he sees that Lord Vishnu, he gives, and Prabhupada writes a very amazing thing in that purport. He says, Lord Vishnu's worshipper gains the eye of transcendental knowledge instead of being blinded by mundane assets. So he says that one who worships Lord Krishna or one who worships Lord Krishna, he gains the transcendental vision. Or he actually aspires or moves towards the path of getting free from these modes, instead of being blinded by the mundane assets that are there. So further in that description, when Shukdev Goswami is explaining this thing to Parikshit Maharaj, he gives another example there. He tells that once King Yudhishthir or Maharaj Yudhishthir also asked the same question from Lord Achyuta or Lord Krishna. Maharaj Yudhishthir also asked something similar, that why is it that worshipper of Lord Hari, he becomes deprived of material opulences. In general it is seen like that. And there Shukdev Goswami is quoting that Lord Shiva, what he himself answered that time. And that is that famous sloka which Prabhupada also often quotes. Yasyaham anugranami harishye tad dhanam shane tato dhanam tyajante asya swajana dukkha dukhitam. And there Lord himself is telling this fact, that since he is nirguna, he is above the modes, same way when he favors someone, or it's mentioned anugranami, that he specially favors someone, then what he does? Harishye tad dhanam shane, that he gradually deprives him of his wealth, or he takes away everything that he has. And what happens as a result of, what is the future thing that happens? Tato dhanam tajante asya, the person becomes poverty-stricken, person loses everything that he has, loses all the opulence. And naturally in this world, when a person loses all the material opulences, his relatives, his friends, naturally they'll abandon him. Or naturally they'll bereft him, they'll not leave him. So such a person, he becomes distressed. Or such a person, so all the wealth, all the opulence is taken away, everyone abandons such a person. And swajana dukkha dukkitam, he keeps on suffering distress. One after the other, he goes on through this distressful situation. So now question comes, why is it like that? Is it because of his karma he is going through all these things? So why is it like that? Is it because of his karma that he is going through all these things? Is he suffering all that, or all the distress is given to him because of his karma? So there the Lord explains very, very nicely that this is not karma, this is a reciprocation of the Lord. And he gives the example just like a lotus petal which is there. So lotus petal, gradually with time it starts losing its different, or lotus that is there, lotus flower, it gradually loses all its petals with time. Same way a person who is practicing devotional service, with time gradually he destroys all his karmic reactions. So naturally a person who is practicing devotional service, if he is undergoing some suffering, or in this case when the Lord gives him some suffering, that is not because of his karma, that is his special mercy, or that is his special reciprocation with the devotee that is there. Now someone may ask, okay, if he doesn't have any karma, or now no further karma is all burnt up, then why he still has a material body? Or why such a person still remains in his material body? So that is explained that is just the inconceivable mercy of the Lord. That is an inconceivable mercy because the Lord gives the fruit of pure devotion only when it becomes completely mature, or only when it becomes completely pure. And that is why still the person externally appears to have a material body. So he might give that happiness and distress, or devotee might get that happiness and distress in his life, which may appear like ordinary karmic reaction, but it is the Lord himself who gives all this distress. Or even if he gives his karma, it is not because of the material nature giving him in karma, but the Lord himself gives him the karma that is there in order to gradually purify him, or in order to gradually bring him closer to him. Now another question may be raised, okay, if the Lord is so compassionate, then why is he giving suffering at all? We call that the Lord is very merciful, Lord is very compassionate to all the living entities. Then why is suffering at all is given? So here a very nice example is given. So this all is from the commentary of the Acharyas, because this part was not translated by Prabhupada. So his disciples translated all this from the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. So there it comes that this analogy is given that even if the Lord is compassionate, why he gives suffering to all the living, suffering to the devotees? He gives the analogy, or he gives the example of a father, loving father towards his children. That a very, very affectionate father, he might sometimes discipline his child. He might sometimes restrict his child, sometimes even send him to school. Even though the child may not be willing to go to school, the father may sometimes forcefully restrict his child to go to school. And that is his affection towards his child. Just like we know the example of Prabhupada himself, he used to tell that in his childhood he never wanted to go to school. And his mother hired some person to forcefully take him to school. So this is how we see here also a very affectionate father, he gradually, or he also sometimes restricts his child or forces him to go to school. But that is his affection towards his child. Same way he explains that Lord Vishnu is also sometimes mercifully strict with all his dependents. And with everyone in that matter, not only with immature devotees struggling to become qualified, but with others also in different ways. And there this description comes that even perfected beings like Yudhishthira Maharaj had to undergo so many tribulations. And that was just for their glorification, just to glorify them more and more. So even though the Lord is very, very compassionate, sometimes he'll give that suffering, and that is compared to what the father sometimes gives to a child, or father also sometimes punishes the child, but that is just for his affection. And that is why sometimes it becomes very, very inconceivable to understand the plan of the Lord. And this is what we discussed previously also. This is what Bhishma Dev prays to the Supreme Lord. When he saw all the Pandavas coming there on the battlefield, when he was lying on the bed of arrows, and when Yudhishthira Maharaj and all the armies were coming there, seeing their position or seeing their condition, he also speaks like that, Aho Kashtam, Aho Anyayam. That you, even though you are son of religion personified, even though you are such a great person, he is speaking to Yudhishthira Maharaj. But still you went through so many tribulations, still you went through so many sufferings. And there he says that this is just the influence of the irreversible time that is there. And finally all this happens because of the inconceivable plan of the Lord. No one can understand the plan of the Lord, But this is just the inconceivable mercy of the Lord or the desire of the Lord. So one thing that is very, very clear is that even though a Vaishnava or a person who is practicing devotional service, his happiness and distress also may seem like the happiness and distress of a karmi, but it is actually different. And now this difference can also be observed, so that is also given. So when a normal person, he undergoes some distress in his life, he undergoes some happiness in his life, that actually lays the seed of future entanglement. Because of that happiness, he might undergo or he might commit some sinful activity, and again he might get degrade himself to hellish life. Or in that distress, he might do something and again he'll become more and more entangled and more degraded in his life. But when it comes to a person who is practicing devotional service, when distress or happiness comes in his life, or when Lord personally is giving that distress and happiness in his life, then that is explained that does not leave any trace after that immediate purpose has been served. Basically, that does not leave any trace for future entanglement. That person, because of that distress or because of that happiness, does not get future entangled. Rather, he becomes more and more purified and he goes more and more closer to the Lord. He does not go into the cycle of birth and death again. So this is what is mentioned, that a Vaishnava might undergo all these things, but when the Lord personally gives him, there is no danger of his falling him into nescience. And this is pretty clear even in the Yamraj prayers, even when Yamraj was telling the Yamadutas. So it was pretty clear where he's telling them that don't bring those people to me, or bring only those sinful people to me who have never chanted the names of the Lord, who have never bowed down before the Lord, who have never performed their duty of worshipping the Supreme Lord. Only bring those people who have never done all these things. And so we can clearly understand that even though a Vaishnava may undergo or a devotee may go through some sufferings, go through some pleasures, but that does not entangle him further, or that does not degrade him further to hellish life. Rather, that is the way of purification, so that he gets purified for moving closer to the Lord or approaching the Lord. And that is what the comparison is given, that suffering arising from karma and suffering arising because of the reciprocation of the Lord, the comparison is given, that is like getting beaten up by an enemy or getting beaten up by a mother or by your own mother. So one is like poison. If you get beaten up, if you fight with someone and someone beats you up, that is definitely like poison. No one feels happy on that. But naturally, when it comes to the beatings by the mother or beatings by the parents who are affectionate towards a child, they don't feel that painful, because the person knows this is for my own betterment. So same is the comparison that is given for a suffering received by a devotee. And there it is mentioned that one who is a mature devotee, how does he react to this? When he gets some suffering in his life, what he thinks like that? What should be his mood? So that is explained that he considered it as a direct guidance of his ever well-wishing Lord. He considered that this is the guidance of the Lord, or Lord is ever my well-wisher. As in the Bhagavad Gita, he says, Suhridam Sarva Bhutanam. That Lord is always the well-wisher of the living entities, and this is just his direct guidance. He doesn't consider the external, superficial, bad or good conditions. He knows that this is something that the Lord wants me to go through for my purification, for my betterment. This is what the reaction of the devotees that is there. And again, the example that is given is of an ointment. Just like a physician, when he applies the ointment to a patient. So sometimes it happens when the ointment is applied, especially in the eyes when infection is there. So immediately it will be very, very painful. Or as soon as the ointment is applied, it might lead to a lot of pain at that time. But with time, the person knows the pain will get relieved, or with time he'll become cured of that disease or cured of that infection. Same way a devotee, when sufferings come in his life, he thinks this is like some curing process that is there, or this is a purification process, and he takes it like that stinging ointment that is there. But he doesn't get shaken by it. Or he understands why the Lord is given, and he always knows that the Lord is always my well-wishing friend. He never doubts the position of the Lord, or he never doubts that why the Lord is giving me such suffering. Rather, he thinks this is something for my own betterment. Now, this is one way the devotee receives the suffering. But on the other hand, one more thing that is explained is that why the Lord gives that suffering. We give the analogy of the father, that how the father wants to correct a child and sometimes he is strict, but that is a show of affection. But there are a few other reasons why the Lord gives this suffering. And one of the other reasons that is mentioned is sometimes to protect the confidentiality of devotional service. by discouraging intrusions by the faithless. So this is also one of the reasons that is given is some pretender might be there who might be practicing or who might be making a big show of devotional service. But he might not have any devotion in his heart. He might not have as such so-called devotion in his heart. Then the Lord, it's known, pure devotional service is very, very rare, and Lord does not give it to anyone and everyone. So to discourage such pretenders who are there or discourage such intrusions which are there, Lord sometimes gives this suffering so that the person who is not pure in his desire or is not sincere in his desire, he becomes discouraged, externally showing off his symptoms of devotional service. This is one of the another reasons that is given. And also another reason that we all know, to increase for the devotees, it is there for increasing their eagerness for approaching the Lord, or increasing their hankering for approaching the Lord. And we have seen many examples like that. In the case of Narad Muni, we see that when Narad Muni in his previous life, when he was the son of the maid servant, and when he had the darshan of the Lord, and Lord disappears after some time, and there when he was very, very distressed, when he was grief stricken, so there also Lord says, or the Akashvani that comes that says, that this is just to increase your eagerness to achieve me, or the more you hanker to achieve or have my darshan, the more you will be freed from all material desires. More you will be purified and more you will be eligible or qualified to approach me. So this is pretty clear that one is the Lord gives their sufferings to remove the persons who are faithless in this path, and for the devotees to increase their eagerness to approach the Lord. And same way we can see clearly in many prayers, like in the prayers of Kunti Maharani also, that she knows she is purposefully asking for distress just so that she can remember the Lord, or she can have the darshan of the Lord. And here further it is explained that one of the reasons for Lord incarnation is also given like that. That Lord incarnates for that reason, that when the devotee calls out for him very, very eagerly, very, very sincerely, when saintly devotees, when they are going through a tough phase, or due to others they are in that very, very serious circumstance, very, very critical circumstance, when they call out to the Lord very, very intensely, then the Lord appears, Lord incarnates. And there the examples are given, like Prahlad Maharaj, when he was undergoing so many suffering, so many tribulations, and when he said that the Lord is present in the pillar, and Lord actually appeared from that place because of his intense mood of having darshan of the Lord or associating with the Lord. So now this question, this is a very nice thing that is explained there, that why we are saying like that a saintly person has to go through sufferings for the Lord incarnation. Or when a saintly person, he goes through suffering and then he intensely hankers for the Lord, then only the Lord appears. Lord can incarnate without that also. Lord can incarnate without any suffering to anyone. Lord can just do the needful what is there. And there something very, very amazing is explained. Again, it comes in the commentaries of Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, where he explains that why the Lord incarnates when a saintly person out of suffering, he hankers for the Lord. Why does the Lord incarnates only at that time? Or why does he let a saintly person go through suffering before his incarnation? And this we see in all the incarnations. When Krishna also appeared, all the demigods, Brahma went to pray to the Supreme Lord because of the burden that was there on the earth. And in multiple incarnations, when we see the saintly persons who are suffering, and they go to the Lord for the incarnation, and finally the Lord incarnates. So there again, this is explained in the commentaries that why does the Lord does like that. And there he speaks something very nice, I'll just quote it. So he says, or Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, he writes like that if someone thinks like that Lord can appear without any reason, or Lord does not need to make his devotees go through suffering for appearing. So he says that, yes, my dear brother, this makes good sense. But you are not expert in understanding spiritual moods. So he is telling to such a person who may say like that whatever you are saying, it is logical, that Lord can appear without any reason. But then he says, you are not very expert in understanding the spiritual moods. And then he says something very interesting. He says that it is at night that the sunrise becomes attractive. During the hot summer, that cold water gives comfort. And during the cold winter months, that warm water is pleasing. And same way he says, when one is distressed by hunger, food tastes specially good. That is but obvious. If someone is too much hungry and he wants to take food, naturally whatever is given to him, he'll feel very tasty. And if someone is full, whatever you give to him, he won't feel like eating it. So he says here that in such a cases, or when in the hot summer cold water gives comfort, or when one is distressed by hunger, food tastes especially good. In the same way, to strengthen his devotees' mode of dependence on him and longing for him, the Lord arranges for his devotees to go through some suffering. And then when he appears in order to deliver them, their gratitude and transcendental pleasure are boundless. So we see in all the lives of great devotees like Prahlad Maharaj, Yudhishthir Maharaj also, and many other examples, all the sufferings they went through, the Lord here explains that Lord arranges those sufferings just for increasing their mood of dependence and longing for him. Because when that eagerness is there, when that hankering is there for attaining the shelter of the Lord, and then the Lord appears, then the gratitude and then the pleasure that they experience is boundless. Of course, I have not experienced all that. I am just repeating the words that are given. But this is what is mentioned, that then the gratitude they experience and then the pleasure they experience when the Lord actually reciprocates from them, that is boundless. That is immense. And that is why the Lord makes them go through that suffering. Or externally it appears like they are going through suffering and they are calling out for the Lord. And finally the Lord incarnates in his various forms. So this is what we are trying to understand about the Sarva Guna or the Nirguna feature of the Lord, that how the Lord is above all the transcendental qualities and how he reciprocates with his devotees by never giving them material, but he might give them material opulences also, but mostly he makes them free from the material modes, free from the influence of the material modes. So furthermore in this prayer we see, so Lakshmi ji, she is praying to the Lord, she is saying Rishikeshaya Sarva Gune Vishesher, that he is with all varieties. And furthermore, she speaks multiple things. She speaks Akutinam, Chittinam, Chetasam, Visheshanam. So she is acknowledging the presence of the Lord in all different kinds of activities that are there. So in the previous verse, we discussed that word Maya, the merciful nature of the Lord. We elaborately had a discussion on this word Maya. And here she is explaining the merciful nature, or here she is explaining that how the Lord expands his mercy in various ways. So she's saying, she's addressing the Lord as Akutinam, that of all kinds of activity, of everything that we see in this world, you are the master. Then she says Chittinam, that of all kinds of knowledge in this world that exists, again you are the master of all kinds of knowledge. And Chetasam, of the functions of the mind, of any kind of function like determination, mental effort, whatever it is, again you are the master of that functions. And then she further says that you are the one who supplies strength to the senses, you are the one who supplies strength to the bodies. And whatever a person has, whatever strength a person has, whatever strength his senses has, everything on his necessities, everything is given by the Lord. Basically how the Lord is present in each and everything. That is what she is acknowledging through this. And we know from the Bhagavad Gita also the same, like the shlokas we quote, which Prabhupada has also quoted here. Rasoham apsu kaunteya prabhasmi shashi suryayo pranava sarva vedeshu shabdakhe paurusham nishu. Which means that Lord is telling to Arjuna all these things, that how he is present in each and everything. He's the, when we drink water, he's the taste in water. He's the one who is the light of the sun, light of the moon, he's the one who is there. And Pranava Sarva Vedeshu, he is the syllable Om in the Vedic mantras. And Shabda Khe Paurusham Nishu, he is the one, he is the sound in ether, he is the ability in man, and he is everything that is there. And furthermore in the further consecutive verses we see, Lord also explains that how he is the original fragrance of the earth, he is the heat in fire, he is the life of all that lives, and he is the penance of all ascetics. So same way we understand here, Lakshmi Devi is also acknowledging that presence of the Lord in each and everything that is there. Whatever strength we have, whatever abilities we have, whatever kinds of knowledge that exist, whatever activities that exist, that actually comes from the Supreme Lord. And we see material world in so many places, in so many things, so many different flavors are there. So many fragrances, like earth also emits a different fragrance. Different flowers, they emit different fragrance. And as we were discussing, human beings also want some fragrance to come from them. But ultimately, all the fragrance comes from the Supreme Lord. Ultimately, the origin is the Supreme Lord. It is Him from whom all this fragrance comes. Or all others are just duplicates, but the original fragrance comes from the Supreme Lord. Same way, the taste that comes, whatever taste we can get by mixing different elements, ultimately it's Lord Himself who gives all the taste in any element that is there. We might experience different tastes, we might mix different elements who are there, But until the Lord does the needful or Lord gives the taste in those elements, we won't be able to experience the taste. And same way, multiple other things that were mentioned even in the Gita, which Krishna explains, like fire. He's that element of fire in everything that is there, whether be in the factories, whether the fire needed in cooking, or even the fire that is needed for digestion. It's the Lord who is present in everything. So one thing we can see here very, very nicely, that when a person becomes Krishna conscious, when he gets that vision, he becomes aware of each and everything around him. Or naturally, he becomes aware that whatever is there around him, be it all these principles of earth, water, fire, air, ether, or whatever that is, everything is there because of the presence of the Lord. Or whatever qualities each and everything in this world has, that is because Krishna is present, or the Lord in the form of his energy is present there. And that is what is keeping them, or that is what is giving them qualities. Without the presence of the Lord, nothing can have any quality. Even when it comes to a duration of a man's life, that is also determined by the Lord, or that is also given by the Supreme Lord. As the Lord says, that famous shloka says, Mare Krishna rakhe ke, rakhe Krishna mare ke. That if the Lord protects someone, then who can kill him? And if the Lord decides to kill someone, who can protect him? So this way a person understands, or as in Prabhupada's words, we can say that Krishna consciousness is there in every sphere of life. Whatever we see around us, Krishna consciousness is present in that. Or Lord in the form of his energies is present in everything. And that's why many times this question is asked when people say that we are very narrow-minded. Or these people, we speak only about Krishna, we don't speak any other topic. We don't speak general topics, like we don't speak about geography, we don't speak about politics. Or nowadays there's so much talk about Hindutva that is going on. So I was hearing one of the disciples of Prabhupada, he was sharing that this is not our primary focus, or as many people have made it the focus, but this is not our focus. Our focus is just to speak about Krishna, or just to speak about the glories of the Lord. So the point is that when we speak about Krishna, or when we understand about Krishna, actually the truth of the matter is then we understand everything. That's what the shloka says, Yasmin vigyate sarvam evam vigyatam bhavanti. That if someone understands about Krishna, he need not learn anything else, or he need not know anything else. Just by understanding the Lord, just by understanding these amazing descriptions from the Bhagavatam, we can understand everything else, or everything else that is needed will be fulfilled. We do not need to separately study any geography, any politics, or whatever it is. And that's why Prabhupada was very, very fixed in this regard. Prabhupada was very, very fixed that everyone should be taught Bhagavatam right from the young age. Or this is the most important thing that is there. And he used to quote that shloka of Prahlad Maharaj, which Prahlad Maharaj was preaching to his demonic students, who were learning everything. They were learning geography, they were learning politics, they were learning social science. But Prahlad Maharaj told that this is all useless. And the only thing that needs to be learned is the Bhagavad Dharma. He says, Kaumaram acharet pragyo dharman bhagavatam iha dullabam manusham janma tadapi adruvam arthadam. He says that right from very young age, this Bhagavad Dharma is the one that has to be learned. Or one who is intelligent, he should use all his energy in learning the Bhagavad Dharma. Because this Manusham Dharma, or this birth of human life, is very, very rare. And that is also temporary, it's not permanent. But in this temporary life, in this very, very rare opportunity, we have got the chance of understanding the highest goal of life, or understanding about the Supreme Lord. And that is why Prabhupada used to focus so much on that this should be taught to everyone. Bhagavatam should be taught right from young age. And Prabhupada used to say that I am not a big scholar, but still I can speak so much about science, still I can speak and defeat the scientist also. Because I know Krishna, I know the Supreme Lord, I know the Bhagavatam. And one who knows this, naturally he knows everything. And Prabhupada used to say that I am not a big scientist, I have not studied so much things, but still I can give so many arguments and I can defeat all these scientists. Because I have understood the basis of that, or I have understood the Supreme Lord. So this is how we see, if someone understands all these things, then naturally whatever is need to be known, he can understand that. And of course, Bhagavatam also describes or so many things. Bhagavatam has description about geography, history, cosmology, that just by understanding Bhagavatam, which is non-different from Krishna, one can naturally understand so many other things, naturally understand about the entire universe that is there. But one thing that is very, very clear, our purpose is not just to theoretically understand all these things, but also to apply the applications or apply these teachings in a day-to-day life. To have faith in the words of the scriptures. So one of the pastimes I was hearing, once Prabhupada was there in the last days or in the 1976. So Prabhupada had asked all his devotees to search for some person in India, search for some scholar in India who can actually translate this different descriptions of the universe that are there in the Bhagavatam into that TOVP object, or into that Vedic cosmology that is there. Basically, he had that vision that he wanted to display in the TOVP the entire Vedic cosmology. And he was asking his disciples to search for some person who is a big scholar in that, who can help us in this regard. So devotees were going throughout the place, and most of them were foreign bodied, Western bodied devotees. And it seems they met someone in South India, some Sri Sampradaya scholar who was there. And this person, he was quoting shlokas left and right. And the devotee who met him, he thought, yeah, this is the correct person. Or this is the person who can help us. And this Sri scholar, or the devotee was there, a scholar who was there, he was quoting left and right from the Bhagavatam. It seems he had memorized most of the shlokas of the Bhagavatam. So this devotee was very happy that now we have brought the person. He took him to Prabhupada. So now when this person, he met Prabhupada also. So meeting Prabhupada, he started again offering praises in his glorification. Verses from the Bhagavatam glorifying Srila Prabhupada. Different verses from the Prabhupada. So finally Prabhupada told him, okay, we want to display all this Vedic cosmology that is there, or all the different descriptions that are given in this Bhagavatam. We want to display it nicely and display it in a very scientific way to give it to others, or tell it to others that how the actual Vedic system is, or how the actual Vedic cosmology is. And when this person heard that, he was little astonished. And he said, this is very difficult. This is not possible for me. And Prabhupada said, at least you try. You are quoting so many verses from the Bhagavatam. You have such a good knowledge. Why don't you give it a try? And this person actually tried something, but then he said, I cannot do this, and he left from that place. And Prabhupada, after his leaving, he said that he might be a great scholar. He might know so many shlokas. He was telling his disciples, he might know so many shlokas. He might quote so many shlokas. But the problem is, he doesn't have faith in those shlokas. He doesn't have faith in the words of the scriptures, that what he is quoting is the actual truth. He himself doesn't have faith that this is the Vedic cosmology, or this is the actual Vedic cosmology, and that's why he's hesitating to describe all that. And that is a very amazing point. When we read all these descriptions or whatever it is there, very important to have faith in the words of the scriptures, or faith in the different descriptions. Because even that person, he knew so many shlokas, he knew all this thing that is there. And even he understood the meanings as well. But he was hesitating to draw it, or he was hesitating to give the diagram from the Bhagavatam. And the only reason which Prabhupada says, because he doesn't have faith in his own words. He doesn't have faith in the scriptures. He thinks that this is not reality. And that is why he is hesitating to give the diagram. So here we understand, when we read these different descriptions, of course we have to understand, we have to have faith in the scriptures, and also come to the point of understanding the greatness of the Supreme Lord, come to the point of praying to the Supreme Lord. And finally, in the end, Lakshmi Devi, he's mentioning certain points, he's pointing out the Lord's merciful nature. So she is using these words like Chandamayaya, Annamayaya, Amritamayaya, and Sarvamayaya. So in the previous verse we discussed the word Mayamaya, or Mayamayam, which is the merciful nature of the Lord. And here she is elaborating it further. Here it's explained, so Chandamayaya, it's explained that Lord in the form of Vedas, he instructs about bhakti to the Lord. Basically, this explains about the merciful nature. All these words explain the merciful nature of the Lord. That how Lord in the form of Vedas, he instructs about bhakti to the Lord. Annamayaya is explained that Lord in the form of food, he maintains the sadhaka devotees. Or how he maintains his devotees in the form of food. Amritamayaya is explained that how in the form of nectar. Basically, all his form, all his qualities, pastimes, that taste like nectar to the devotees. And Sarvamayaya means all forms, or all different forms Lord comes and he gives all these different things for his devotees. He instructs about bhakti to his devotees. He comes in the form of food, or the prasad we take, that is also a form of the Lord, by which he maintains the devotees. And then he gives nectar to the devotees in the form of his form, qualities, and pastimes. And this is the amazing, merciful nature of the Lord. And as in this Bhagavad Gita also says, that one who is engaged in his devotional service, yoga shema vahamiham. That those who always worship him with exclusive devotion, then Lord is so merciful that he carries what they lack and he preserves what they have. The point that is made is that how Lord takes the burden of maintaining his devotees, or what is mentioned here by Kantaya, or by the word Kamaya, that one who supplies all necessities to the devotees. So Lord himself says that he takes care of all his devotees, those who engage in his exclusive devotional service. Ananyas chintayanto mam ye jana paripasate tesham nityabhyuktanam yoga shemam vahamiham. That he takes care of what they lack and he preserves what they have, those who engage in his exclusive devotional service. And there it's explained that Lord bears the burden, or Lord takes this burden of maintaining the bodies, or maintaining these devotees who are there. Of course, this is a different kind of burden, the burden of love that is there. And the example that is given, just like a householder, he takes the responsibilities of his wife and children. And he not only takes the responsibility of that, he becomes very, very happy in that. Just like we were reading the description in the Bhagavatam, that how a person works so hard to earn so much money. And when that money is stolen by someone, that person becomes very, very devastated. But when the same money is taken by his own wife and children, the person becomes happy. Person feels very nice, oh, very nicely they are taking this. Person feels like that. Also, that same, how the householder takes the responsibility of his own family, Lord takes the responsibility, or Lord bears the burden of maintaining his devotees. That is what is meant by one who supplies all the necessities of his devotees. So how we see in this amazing prayers which are being offered by Goddess of Fortune, offered by Rama to the Supreme Lord, or to Lord in the form of Kamdev in Ketumala Varsha, it has so many amazing details to it that if we analyze these prayers, we can understand so much about the nature of the Lord. Here we saw about the merciful nature of the Lord, how he gives, how he maintains all his devotees, he supplies all his necessities to his devotees. We understood about the position of the Lord, that how he is above all the material qualities that are there. He is transcendental to all the material qualities. And finally we saw that how the Lord maintains his Ananya Bhaktas, or maintains his devotees who are there. So this is just by these prayers, which are very amazing part of the Bhagavatam. Just by analyzing this prayer, we can understand so much about the position of the Lord and how a devotee offers respectful obeisances. So here finally, Rama, or Goddess of Fortune, Rama Devi, she is offering her obeisances to the Lord, and she is saying that let us all offer him our respectful obeisances, and may he always be favorable towards us in this life and the next. This is how devotees, understanding the position of the Lord, they offer their respects to the Lord. So with this I would like to end here. Hare Krishna. Any questions?
Lord does not give anything for the devotees. Take grace or something from others. So even though the Lord gives something, so after serving the purpose, it will be taken away. So any examples?
After Lord gives something, like we have examples like Prahlad Maharaj, when he worshipped the Lord appeared in front of him, and after that, even though he didn't desire, but he was giving the rule of the entire kingdom. What was the question exactly? We have these examples of great devotees like Dhruv Maharaj. When he had the darshan of the Lord, he got the Dhruvaloka, the biggest planet that is there. But then he continued to be a pure devotee, he continued to be engaged, and Lord gave him the benediction that after enjoying there, you will come back to me. Same in the case of Prahlad Maharaj. So when Lord gives some benediction, it's clear from many examples like this that it is not entangling, or the devotee does not get further entangled. But when it comes to our own karma of a person, so that leads to further and further entanglement. One karma or one result leads to the seed of another karma, and then the person becomes more and more entangled. That is what it is. No, this is for those to whom the Lord, what is mentioned is to whom the Lord reciprocates. If Lord reciprocates with someone, or Lord gives the suffering to someone, then he doesn't get entangled. And whatever it's mentioned, the description is given for a sadhaka devotee. For one who is practicing pure devotional service, Lord takes over his karma, and then if the Lord gives the karma, then that does not entangle him. Now, this is for one who is practicing the path of pure devotional service, not necessarily that he has reached that stage of purified also. For that person also, if the Lord is giving his karma, that won't entangle him.
I was trying to search reference for this, that Lord gives karma. I was not able to find.
In this verse only, the 1088.5.
Eh?
88.5.
So there it's a Lord gives.
Hmm. Sorry, this one. Yes, 88.8. Sorry, sir. That yasya aham anugranami. That shloka in that. ग्रंथ श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, श्रील प्रभुपाद की।